In this video tutorial, what I'd like to go over how to set up your Maya work environment for working between Maya and Rhino. And I also want to go over some steps for exporting your files from Maya into Rhino as a step for 3D printing. You can actually export STL files directly from Maya, but a lot of times we like to bring it into Rhino to set up, format, and check our polygonal meshes before we 3D print them. So I'm going to go over some things on how to set up your basic work environment, and then we're going to deal with how we move our files between the two programs as a part of preparing models for 3D printing. Okay, we're going to start by going into our Windows Setting Preferences menu. Windows Setting Preferences, Preferences window. And we want to go into our settings. And the thing that we want to make sure is that our world coordinate system is a Z-up coordinate system. Maya defaults to a Y-up coordinate system, but Rhino uses a Z-up coordinate system. So when you move the files between the programs, you want to make sure that you have Z-up. Otherwise, you're going to have to rotate them 90 degrees when you bring them into Rhino. You want to set up your working units, your linear units, to be an inch. You want that to be an inch. Okay. Now we want to go into our display, and we want to display our grid. And we want to go into our grid options box. And in our grid options, we want to set up the length and width of our grid. And I have it set to 16 units here. That means that it's going to be 16 units in each direction. So it's actually 32 inches altogether. And I want a grid line every 12 inches. So I'm going to have a single grid line every 12 inches. And I also want to have 12 subdivisions. So that gives me basically a 1-inch grid with this setup that we have here. And I also display my axis, thicker line for axis, and I have my grid lines and my subdivision lines. And so I'll apply and close that, and I get the grid that you see before you here. You get this grid that you see before you here. The origin's at 0, and it's 12, 12, negative 12, negative 12 in that direction. Okay, so I have my basic grid set up here in Maya. Now to check it, I'm going to draw a polygon, or a cube, sorry, and I'm going to bring this cube up like so, and I'm going to go into its attribute editor, and I'm going to go into the Polycube node, which we have here, and I'm going to set all of my units to 1, 1, and 1. And so I have a 1 unit cube here. And if I were to go into my front window, that cube is in fact 1 unit in size. So that's a good cube, and I know that everything is okay in my Maya world, and it's got the proper dimensions. I also like to display in my heads-up display, I also like to see my poly count. Okay, so that I can see the number of vertices, edges, and faces in my data. I often find that very helpful as I'm working to be able to see that. And that's how you do the basic setup of your work area in Maya for when you're working. I also like to turn my edges on so I can always see my edges. I like to do that so I can see the polygonal meshes that I'm working with. So now my work world in Maya will be set up with some basic units that I can then use as I'm working in Rhino. And I'm going to go into detail now about how you move the files between each program and how you convert files to STL format from within Rhino, from within Maya, and how you export it as an OBJ file to Rhino. And you want to make sure that you go into your settings preferences, plugin manager, and make sure that when you do, and you come down here to the OBJ export, make sure that that's checked. And you might need to refresh it if it's unchecked, because then you'll have your OBJ exporter, which is key when you want to move files between, polygonal files between Maya and Rhino. Maya is a much more robust program for doing work with polygons than Rhino, but Rhino is a lot better when it comes to utilities for checking your files and making sure that they're formatted properly for 3D printing.